Hey guys, Jake Carlson here, host of the Modern Leadership Podcast. Are you ready to focus on amplifying your leadership superpowers? Let's go! Good morning, my friends and fellow elite achievers. Welcome to Modern Leadership, the podcast where each week we sit down with authors, entrepreneurs, and leaders to explore their journey, diving into the ups, their downs, and ultimately the lessons they learned along the way. Our goal, of course, is to show that everything is figure-outable. Today's guest expert is Dr. Daphne Scott. Daphne is the founder of DS Leadership Life. She holds a master's degree in applied positive psychology and a doctorate of science in physical therapy. As a certified professional co-active coach, certified Hendricks coach, a founding member of the Conscious Leadership Group, and a member of the International Coaching Federation, Daphne has studied with top-level executive coaches, consciousness experts, and organizational psychologists. She developed her coaching program throughout 2 decades of real-world corporate development experience, drawing on her unique background in improv theater and physical therapy to bring engaging embodiment and team-building elements to her coaching. And today, she is our guest expert. Daphne, it's so great to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me, Jake, and for reading that seemingly laborious bio.
You know, I edit all of the bios, kind of do my own way of doing it, but I couldn't cut anything out because each one of those titles or each one of those, certifications or background, I think sets us up for the conversation that we're going to have, because it really shows this isn't just something that you one day decided you were going to think about. This is a lifetime pursuit.
Yes, it has been. That's very kind of you to say. So thank you. And I'm excited to be on the show today, obviously.
Very nice. Very nice. Before we jump into the business, let's talk about a little bit your personal. We got your business background. How about who is Daphne on a personal level?
Oh, it's such a great question. I want to say I spent the last 20 years living in Chicago, Illinois. I was born and raised in Michigan, and now I live in Oklahoma City. Which has been a different experience than living in the city of Chicago. And I love it here. It's a great town. You sort of have a lot of city conveniences, but without all the congestion, Jake. So I live here in Oklahoma City with my partner, Bridget. And I'm having a great time. And I have a dog, Gertrude, who goes by Gertie. She's a French bulldog, so she's a little Frenchy, and she's just one of the most entertaining aspects of my life.
Very cool. Well, how did Oklahoma enter into this picture? So you're up in the cold and the freeze and all of that going on. What drove you down to Oklahoma?
Yeah, Bridget, you meet someone, and as it turns out, I travel for works, which means that I can pretty much live anywhere.
Yeah, location independence.
That's right. I love that. And so I look at it as sort of me drawing the short straw.
But you're loving it, so it wasn't that short after all.
No, it was not. It was not. It's just funny, the stories we tell ourselves about, where we'll live and what we'll do and all those sorts of things. So, yeah. So that's how I actually came to live here now. And I really enjoy it. It's hot, though. It's hot.
Well, you're talking to a guy who lives in Phoenix. We know
that's
hot.
Right. That's right. I mean, why am I even bringing this up? And I did tell myself I last Friday made a commitment to myself to no longer complain to myself or to other people about how hot it is.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't.
I just barely got off the call with somebody where we had a conversation saying it doesn't matter where you live. You got, except California, you've got 3 months of bad weather. And now if it's Chicago, it's more like 9. But the rest of the United States, it's like 3 months of either cold or hot, unless you're in California.
That's so true. And as you know, Jake, it's all about how we relate to it that really matters. So,
this from someone who is certified in applied positive psychology. I love your background, and I want to jump into this. And one of the things that fascinates me about what you talk about is this leadership and how relationships play into this. So let's dive in. What you talk about is there's really 5 relationships that every leader must have. They need to have. And let's talk about them. Let's walk through them one by one.
Number one, our relationship to time, to the experience of time. Now, I want to tell you, a lot of times when I talk about, here are the 5 relationships every leader needs to have, or entrepreneur, a lot of times people are like, oh, you mean I need to have a relationship with an accountant?
A referral source, a professional colleague.
That's right. That's right. And in my experience, what I really found is that people consistently would get hung up around really how they're relating to, for example, time. Most leaders have the experience pretty reliably of feeling as though they never have enough. They're never going to get everything done. The list is never going to get handled. That there's always sort of the scarcity around time. And then when they do get space, they start having this anxiety, this restlessness that they're not doing enough. They start to get bored. So, right. So this sort of the first relationship is the relationship around time. The next is the relationship around relationship to money, how they relate to the experience of this thing we call money. And then the third one is self, how they relate to the experience of the self. And then friendships is the fourth one. And the last one, probably the biggest one, is our relationship to the unknown, how we relate to this experience of not knowing.
Okay, well, I want to talk about each of them a little bit deeper. So I want to go back to time for a second, because you're absolutely right that, entrepreneurs, leaders, we always feel like there's not enough time. And of course, one of the goals of entrepreneurship is to make enough money that you can buy back some of your time, right? Or create some passive income stream that'll allow you more time to do the things that you want to do. But when we look at time, time is constant, right? Everybody that we're competing against, everybody, you and I, we all have the same 168 hours in a week. And so time, your relationship with time is really more of your relationship with like focus and intentionality, isn't it?
Yeah. And what I would even say, take it a step deeper. So yes, absolutely. Intentionality matters. And when you talk about focus, and here you sort of said something, you said, to have more access to money so that we can buy back our time. And what's really true is, and I think this is where this idea of intentionality comes in, is that you will never have enough time to do the things you don't want to do. And right there, we get right at the root of it. And that's a quote from one of my great teachers, Gay Hendricks, who also wrote the book. He's written a couple books now in particular that I love to recommend to leaders. The Big Leap is one of them. And but he makes this very poignant, sort of pithy statement about you'll never have enough time to do the things you don't want to do. And what starts to happen when we're not intentional, when we're not being really clear about what is mine to do and what isn't, we can end up with a lot of things on our plate that are things that really we just have no energy around doing. We really, no matter how much time we have, that thing would sit last on the list, regardless, right? So there's absolutely the intentionality part of it, and then in what we're doing, and being really clear about that. And then there's also the part of just understanding that when we start talking about really getting ourselves in the space of feeling like we're doing the things that we really want to be doing, what we start to notice is that our energy level actually comes up. We have greater resources internally. And so what we start to really experience is that it isn't so much that we're managing time, because time really can't be managed. To your point, it's, but there's clock time and then there's our experience of time. And what we really start to have is more a greater understanding that really what we're managing is our energy. How much energy capacity we have for different things at different times. Do we have the resource in ourselves to be able to tap into that energy, to renew that energy over time so that we can get the things done that we actually do want to do?
Because there are things that need to be done. I mean, there's going to be things that you don't want to do that as a leader, you've just got to roll up the sleeves and get them done. And finding the time to do that is really about recognizing, kind of, as Stephen Covey would say, start with the end in mind, knowing where you're going, where you want to end up, and then recognizing that there are investments, sacrifices that are required in order to get there.
That's right. And so if people are not dialed in with their true meaning and purpose of what they're doing, I think there's two sort of ways you can approach this. One thing that when people get stuck around their doing and their experience of time is they don't know what to do next. And really, in part of managing our time is we have to be really clear about, what's the next action that needs to be taken. So that's one level. They're just not clear. There's no clarity about that. The other is what you're really talking about is, are you really clear and dialed in on what your meaning is and what your purpose is? Behind your doing. And that's what gives us those energy stores. That's what gives us those renewable sources of energy is, then we will take on the challenges, or we'll, do the thing that maybe we're the only one who really can do it. Okay. Especially in an entrepreneurial situation, right? I mean, you're running a business, I'm running a business. I'm a team of two, so there may be things that I can delegate for sure, but for those things that I can't in a moment, then that's where I find that energy store to go to that next level to get back, to get dialed into the meaning and purpose behind it. So absolutely. But the point is, I think that in our relationship to time is that we really want to be mindful about how we're managing our energy and being clear about our meaning and purpose, because the clock is the clock. It's going to do what it does. We don't have to act crazy like there's not clock time. There is, but Einstein really helped us understand that our experience of time, like we really do control our experience of time. And the idea that we don't have enough is really just an idea. And it's interesting that we've all been sort of brainwashed into that over time, I guess, is what I would say. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And so I wanted to jump in a little bit about this idea of stillness, because as we've talked about time, one of the big leadership challenges I see facing our future is that leaders, because of, being constantly on, being surrounded by technology, being always inundated with what we call fires, they're constantly putting out fires. One of the things that's been lost recently, or in the past 20 years, is this moment of stillness where a leader can sit back and think about the future and really be proactive about what they want to accomplish. And I think that we've got ourselves into this activity trap where we're so busy, we're working probably harder than we ever have before. But because we're working harder on emergencies, on firefighting, on reactive stuff, I think one of the big things that we're losing out on is this proactive stuff, and that is stillness. So tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, such a great thing. Well, I like to think of three buckets: stillness, silence, and solitude. And we all need some version of that. For me, it's much more stillness, just being still. Some people need more silence. Some people need to just be off by themselves too, or some version of all three. And you're exactly right. I think, again, this is where our relationship to this idea of time and relationship to doing and getting things done can start to erode our ability to give ourselves stillness. You can start to see where this becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, that if I run around with the idea that there's not going to be enough time, that I'm not going to get things done, it would be almost kind of crazy then to think that I would sit still for 5 seconds. If the operating system is such that it says you're never going to have enough time, you're never going to get all this stuff done. It's just not going to get done. You don't have enough space to get it done. Well, why in the world would I sit still? That would be kind of crazy. So if we work at the root to say, okay, let me just see the story that I tell myself that I don't have enough time, that I'm not going to get everything done, that the world will erode if I don't answer these, 10 emails. If I start to challenge some of that thinking, then I can start to really get with what's true, which is, and I point this out to leaders quite a bit, you've actually always gotten the things done that need to get done, or you wouldn't be in the seat that you're in. You've handled your life pretty well, probably, in most instances, and learned. So you probably can afford yourself to relax just a little bit and take the stillness that really is required to renew your energy and also to get clarity. And I think that's what you're pointing to, Jake, is that without that clarity, without that pause to kind of come up above the trees a little bit, right, to see the big picture, we really don't have a good sense of where we're going. And then life is a checklist. And we're sort of become this maniac who's just running around, checking things off the list. And really quite for most people, we start to feel like crazy makers because we're really not being intentional with what we're doing. So it's absolutely necessary. And we have to contend in our modern life, Jake, with so many more things, our phones, the ever present, right? Again, I don't blame the phone. I don't blame social media. I don't really have any of that energy towards it. What I would say, though, is that those things are ever present in our lives now and can be if we don't take responsibility for turning that stuff off, getting it out, getting the alerts turned off, challenging our beliefs that we have to be accessible all the time. I watch that really pervade in organizations. I always have to be answering my emails, or and it takes on a life of its own then that our nervous system starts to get wired that way. And then we create these, they have all this sort of evidence now that's coming out about phones and social media. And even when we pick up our phone and look at the screen, you get a hit of dopamine, which is a very addictive substance, right? So we know all this stuff now. And so we really need to take responsibility for it as individuals to go, okay, really what's necessary here?
Yeah, and I love this idea of clarity that you're talking about. One of the themes that's come up quite a bit recently in my coaching, and that is that when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like you've got too much going on, there's so many influences coming at you, what you're really saying is I lack clarity. And the definition of overwhelm is a lack of clarity. And once you have that clarity, the overwhelm dissipates and then you can act.
Yes. Yes, and that's the easiest. I think that's a beautiful way to approach it, and I find that to be true in my experience as well. Is that you're in your mind, you're spinning, you're telling yourself all these things that just isn't true. Really, you're having an experience, but it doesn't make it true, and necessarily. And then when you can sort of pan out and get clarity and say, what's the next immediate action I need to take? What's the thing that's going to allow me to feel my best that I can get handled right now? And that does really. That I think that is very, very helpful to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about one of these other ones. I want to jump into the unknown and talk about our relationship with the unknown as leaders.
Yes, a big one. I think this one, there's a reason that these are in the order that they're in, by the way. And I think this one is the big one. I had this thing that I said at a conference I was speaking at where I said, I don't know is the least revered sentence, I think, in the English language. We really... Our brain, again, I mean, some of this is how we're just wired. The brain is a prediction machine. It wants to know. It looks for things to make sense in a certain context all the time. And when life doesn't show up that way, it gets a real jangle over there because it puts us in the unknown. It's saying that this isn't reliable, this isn't predictable, and it doesn't like it. And so we don't like it because it challenges our safety, it challenges our security, our sense of control, and the like. So when we, as leaders and people running a business, if you pay attention to how much time is spent trying, and not that this is a bad thing, it's more about how we relate to it, but how much time is spent trying to systematize things, how much time is spent trying to put these controls in place so that we never have to deal with, the loss of things, for example. And really at the root, what I'm talking about is this desire to keep things permanent. That will never experience a bad quarter. It will never experience a bad, month in the business sort of thing. And so when we can get really comfortable with, we're going to do everything that we can that makes sense to do so, that supports our well-being, the well-being of the business, and the well-being of our employees to make sure that we are being profitable and delivering our promises to our customers, so on and so forth. We'll do all those things because that makes sense to do those things. And yet we really don't know what's going to happen. I think people are much more freer to make really wise choices versus very limited short-term decisions, which typically don't work out very well and typically are made from fear.
So you have a number of leaders listening to the episode right now, and they're thinking to themselves, okay, all we talk about is policy, systems, and procedures. All we talk about is systematizing everything. And the reason for that is, like you said, it clarifies, it makes us, it creates that feeling of, I know the direction that I'm going. It removes the unknown. But other than that, we have to overcome this unknown. It sounds like you lean more towards the mindset of, everything is figure outable. Let's just keep moving forward, doing the things we know we need to do, and don't get ourselves caught up on worrying about the unknown. But we're leaders. That's what we do. And so we can't just turn it off. So how can we work on ourselves and maybe this goes to number 3 in your list, your relationship with yourself, but how do we turn ourselves off in this process of not worrying about the unknown so much?
It's a practice for sure. And I always like to bring people back to having their own experience if they really look at, and as leaders really look at the truth, sort of the truth of existence, if you will, that nothing is permanent. Even me as a quote person, I'm not permanent. I've had, you just reading my bio, right? I've had many lives already. So nothing is permanent. And so if we can really get with that and be comfortable in that, to your point, Jake, then we're still going to make decisions. We're still going to, having systems in place makes total sense. That'd take it too far to be like, well, we're not going to systematize anything. It'll be a free for all because nothing's permanent. Why bother? Well, that wouldn't make much sense either. What I really talk about with people, really, again, when we talk about relationships, it's how we relate to that. We can put these things in place because it's useful at the time and it makes sense to do so. But the unknown is, we never really know. And so it appears that we're getting rid of the unknown, but that's impossible because nothing's permanent. Things are inherently unreliable. Everything is eroding. Things are breaking. Systems no longer are functional, so on and so forth.
And this is happening at a faster rate than ever before because of the advances in technology, because of innovation. It's happening fast.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so the more that And I think when leaders can see the truth of that and have their own experience of that, really understand that that's sort of the isness of the whole thing. We're still going to do our jobs. We're still going to build our businesses. Of course, it's fun to do. We're still going to put systems in place that make the most sense. But what it gives them, I think, is a sense of freedom, that they don't have to worry about trying to hang on to everything all the time, that they don't have to worry and be overly concerning themselves. And here's the thing, when the mind can relax in that way, then the innovation really starts to happen, the creativity, the ability to go, well, what are all the possibilities? If I'm not worried about protecting myself so much or trying to control all of this so much, I can actually see what all the possibilities are. And then we actually get access to greater innovation, which every single leader I work with at every company I work with will say that. We really want access to creativity and innovation. We want to be able to your point, keep up with the speed at which things are changing. And boy, you really can't do that when your relationship to the unknown or relationship to self is one that's really contracted about trying to maintain things being the same all the time. You really lose access to that. You just can't think that way.
And one of the mantras that I have used a lot lately is that immediate imperfect action beats inaction every time. And if we wait until we know, until the outcome is known, we're going to be behind. And I say to people that I'm coaching with, I say, look, you have a decision to make. If you make the decision today and act on it and it's wrong, you have 3 months to fix it. If you don't make the decision today, but you spend the next 3 months deciding, and then you make the decision, you've just lost the 3 months that you have to fix any mistakes that you made. As leaders, it's not about being right all the time. It's about moving forward in a constant forward progression and adapting and adjusting when things aren't going as outcomes aren't as in predictable way that we expected.
That's exactly it. And I think that's really where people, when leaders and businesses can get in touch with that at a deeper level, that's where they really start to have fun. That's where, all these things we're bringing into the world, we start to have a good time with it. And we start to see it much more as a game instead of the sort of rigid kind of have to energy that can start to take over out of fear, for sure.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation about these 5 relationships every leader needs. I know we didn't jump into the money and the friendships, but I think that throughout the other podcasts and different readings that we've done, a lot of our leaders can catch up with what we're talking about. But at this point, I'd love to find out a little bit more about you and what you're up to and change gears to what we call learning from leaders. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
All right. So the first question then is the book currently on your Kindle or bedside table. What are you reading these days?
Yeah, this is gonna really crack you up. I am rereading The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
And we did not plan this at all. That was completely spontaneous.
When you said it earlier, I was giggling to myself. Yeah, I've gone back through my iPad, Kindle app there. And I was looking through these books, and that one really stuck out to me. And I'm like, man, I read that book probably 15 years ago, at least. And I thought, I'm going to give this another read. And I am really loving it. It's amazing to me how certain aspects of that book, again, everything lands differently depending on where you're at in your life, right? Certain aspects of that book really have shown up to me. So yeah, I'm actually rereading that right now. That's the most recent businessy book that I'm reading right now.
I think of it like an onion, right? I mean, you're peeling back, and every time you peel back a layer, there's more and more. Those principles are timeless.
They are timeless. That book is it's absolutely timeless. Yep, I agree. So that's what I'm currently reading right now.
All right, our next question then is your leadership superpower.
Bravery, and the really being able to say the thing that people are thinking, but no one's willing to say. That is absolutely my superpower.
And there really is a superpower nature to this, because it's one thing to say what's on your mind and it comes out in a rude way, it comes out in a derogatory way or an unmotivating way, but it's truly a superpower to be able to recognize what needs to be said, even the hard truths, and being able to communicate that to your team.
That's exactly right. And saying it in a way that it can be heard. I think that's the big part. I mean, anybody can, and I think the other part of that, my other superpower is really recognizing just that it's true that I have a thought. It just doesn't make the thought true. So this is a big one. part of, really being able to speak to people in a way that you're willing to own that you're making up your own story, your own interpretation about things, and it's true. So holding stories lightly, I think, is probably a part of that too, which gives people the capacity to be able to speak in a way that things can be heard.
So what step do you have for our leaders listening to kind of cultivate this bravery within themselves?
What immediately came to mind when you asked it was really coming back to that stillness part that you spoke of, Jake, of being able to take the space to sit. I am a huge fan of meditation. I've been a meditator for 15 years now. And I think it's really mandatory for people to be able to pay attention in a certain way. And I think once people can pay attention in a certain way where they drop away judgment and criticism, I think it is much easier to be brave and to speak and take risks because you recognize sort of what your default patterns could be, where you're not going to pay attention, and you're able to pay attention more acutely to what's happening in the collective. So I would recommend that.
During this episode, we've had a lot of one-liners. We've had a lot of philosophy, a lot of quote, a lot of mantra. But at this point, I'd like to ask, what is your favorite motivational quote, philosophy, or mantra, something that you live by?
How you do anything is how you do everything. And that was actually from Aristotle.
So it stood the test of time.
It has stood the test of time. And that's, I'm kind of paraphrasing, I think, the quote. But, to your point, Jake, right at the top that you're making about really intentionality. How you're, and I work with leaders on this quite a bit. You don't get to be one way in the boardroom and a different way in the living room. You show up everywhere. And so how you're doing, your business, how you're actually, I heard this quote, I loved it. And this comes in with money. This guy said, if you are if you're a mean person and you get a lot of all that money is going to do, and you get more money, it's going to magnify any blind spot that you have in your life. If you're a mean person and you get a lot of money, holy smokes, everybody better watch out. And I think what he was really speaking to there was really how you do anything is how you do everything. And so that is a very important quote for me, for sure.
Absolutely one of my favorites. All right, our last question then is the book that you most often gift or refer to friends, family, or colleagues.
Yeah, the book I most often refer people to is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And that book, again, I think it's going to show up as a classic. It's really about, when you talked about bravery, it really is about taking those exquisite risks in our life to allow ourselves to go from, one level to the next level, to living our best life, to living in our genius, to doing the thing that we're really meant to be doing on this planet and discovering that over time. That book was a game changer for me, and that's the one I recommend the most to almost everybody, actually.
Well, and I've got it up right now on my Amazon. I'm looking at it as we speak. Daphne, this has been a fascinating conversation. So much background experience, wisdom, and great ideas, actionable ideas coming out of what you're talking about. Before we let you go, any last bit of advice, and how can we find out more about you and what you're up to?
Thanks for asking. So you can definitely find me at my website, 3Ws, Daphne-Scott.com. I actually have a book coming out in November. This will shock you. It's titled Waking Up a Leader, The 5 Relationships of Success. So it's about when you said people can find out more about those relationships. That's a way to find it. That book will be out in November. And then I have a really great online leadership course that people are welcome to access at 3wswakingupaleader.com. So those are some different access points that people can have to me if they feel so inspired.
We will link all of that up on the show notes, and we will pick up a copy of your book and really promote it, because what you're talking about is so vitally important. We as leaders need to wake up, and it's about being aware and intentional in our relationships, whether it's with time, money, with ourselves, friendships, and of course, the unknown. Daphne, thank you for coming on and being this week's Modern Leadership guest expert.
Oh, Jake, it was so great. Thanks for having me. I love your enthusiasm, and this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
All right, my friends, what a fun and fascinating conversation. I love this idea, as you can tell, of talking about time, right? We all have 168 hours in a week. How are we going to use them? What are we going to be intentional about? What are the things that we're going to delegate? What are the things that we're going to just put to the side and not do? How are we going to be intentional about using the 168 hours each of us has in a week? The most successful person and the biggest failure, however you want to define that, all have the same amount of time. It's what we do at that time that makes such a big difference. Of course, the other 4 relationships are things that we need to jump into. And as we talked about right there at the end with Daphne, her book is on shelves now. You can pick it up. There's a link on the show notes to pick up a copy on Amazon. Of course, everything can be found at jakeacarlson.com/ML153, episode 153. And you know what? I forgot to wish you a very Happy New Year. This is the first episode of 2020. Welcome to 2020. I hope you spent some time and figured out some goals, some objectives, the things that you're going to focus on this year. How are you going to make this the best year ever? And until next week, I want to wish you the very best of days, an even better life, and remember, everything is figure-outable. Thanks for listening to the Modern Leadership Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at Speaker Jake, on Twitter at Jake A. Carlson, and of course the website, jakeacarlson.com. See you there.